Well, between 45 and 50 million Americans have some sort of disability, and 2011 marks the 21st anniversary of the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. Join me now, one of the foremost authorities in the state of Florida on that, J.R. Harding, who has been in that wheelchair since 1983. J.R., thank you so much for being here. Talk to me about the difference the ADA has made in your life.
Oh, it's simply black and white, Mike. In the early days, I could not park. I couldn't go to college where I wanted to, couldn't find a hotel room, certainly couldn't go swimming, and most definitely here in the state of Florida, riding a ride in Disney World would not have been possible. So the progress we made is remarkable.
But it's only progress.
It's only progress. The truth is, we still sit on the back of the bus. Employment is one of those critical numbers of a social success mechanism.
All right, and unemployment for people with disabilities, I know for the developmentally disabled, it can be in the mid-80s, but for folks in a wheelchair, it could be 70%.
Well, it's true, Mike, and it's hard sometimes to differentiate blindness, hard of hearing, mobility impairment, and developmental disabilities. So the whole range is pretty significant. What we do know is that most of our individuals are not in the workforce, and only about 23 to 31% in fact are. And those of us who are in the workforce do not earn as much as everybody else, according to the new reports that are out in 2011.
All right, so an employer looking for a job and someone who is transportation disadvantaged, as you might be, give me a sense, why should they consider, besides it's the law, what strengths do you bring?
Well, that's an excellent point of view. One, we understand a population that others don't, a whole market and a whole economy and customers and sales. But beyond that, because getting a job is really so hard for us, and quite frankly, having to be overqualified for the job, and that's the one that you're better fit for, or the one you get the chance with, is we're loyal. Extremely loyal. We're not as migratory as other individuals because so much goes with our lives.
And indeed, so you're happy to have a job and be accepted, so that gives you a tendency to want to stay.
Well, true, and find a community. And that, in a sense, was one of the reasons why I live here in this town. Because as you know, I recovered from a second quadriplegic injury in 1998, 8 years after the ADA. And while I was recruited by Florida Atlantic University, or New School Gulf Coast down there in Fort Myers, I didn't feel I had the courage and the strength to rebuild my community infrastructure. I was established, and I didn't know if I could handle the risk. So I preferred to stay in a town who knew me, and I knew it.
All right, so ADA is 21 years old. What do you hope happens in the next 20 years? What needs in your mind to happen?
Well, to me, we're going into the next level. We've made progress. The low fruit has been picked. Now we need to incorporate things like the outdoors, cruise industry, technology. I mean, quite frankly, I am not able to fill out my timesheet and control certain things on the internet because it's not accessible. It's changing so quickly, rules and regulations can't keep up with the entrepreneurial spirit in America. So in another 20 years, a job like mine, which helps people get around with transportation, or helps people with job coaching, or builds a relationship with someone like you, should not be needed in another 20 years.
All right, and you mentioned outdoor activities, and you have been a pioneer in convincing the state to actually develop a park at Port St. Joe.
Oh, absolutely. The state has owned Billie Joe Risch Park since 1973. And recently they put $3.5 million worth of access into it because in the 70s nobody knew what access was. Nobody knew what a barrier-free environment is. And since you've been out there, it just changes your quality of life when you're able to go to the beach, see the sunset, see the seagulls do its thing, and just have a barbecue like everybody else.
All right, so JR, what would you say to average folks about your condition and the folks, and what, how should they regard you?
Well, I think they should regard me as a human being first, and that's how it was very different back then. Second, that I'm competitive. Two, I bring added value, and it's not just me. The whole community brings commitment, loyalty, and hard work. And so I would encourage everyone to reach out and recruit individuals with disabilities, because you're getting a whole host of community support behind that individual.
All right, Dr. J.R. Harding, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your thoughts about the 21st anniversary of the ADA. All right, everyone else, stay with us. We'll be right back. Well, 2011 is the 21st anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, as we've told you in a previous segment. But joining us again is J.R. Harding, the author of Now What? It traces your history, J.R., and I do want to mention that you are a Dr. J.R. Harding, from the time of your initial injury in 1983. So pick up the story here in this book.
Well, thank you, Mike. This story begins as a senior in high school. I'm getting my 6th and 7th varsity letter. I'm going to be recruited to play football, and I walk away from a fist fight. I do what I'm supposed to, and I'm thrown on the ground, instantly becoming a quadriplegic, life-changing forever.
And what was the initial reaction? How did you start to deal with that?
Well, really, the irony of it was I had to take charge, because the gentlemen who wanted to fight, you know, were in shock, and I was the one who was injured. So I had to take the lead, get some help, get the EMTs, and move on. Then initially getting to an area of clarity, and my father standing over me. He had pain, he had anger, he had frustration. He had lost on his face. And he said, now what? And I felt as if I had let him down. So I said, I need to graduate from high school like I'm supposed to and go to college. And so we began a mission and a movement for the family.
All right, and so you graduate high school, you go to college. In talking, you said you actually hid out in college to be more qualified.
Well, I did, because honestly, Mike, what was I going to do in the 80s? We had no access. There was no accessibility. I wouldn't be here today, and I certainly would not have driven myself. Okay, so I didn't know what I was going to college for, honestly. And it wasn't until I ran in and did some deep soul searching and had some own difficulties with substance abuse that then I got an awakening to ask my faculty for help. And actually I then learned that they were my friends and they were willing to guide me through into the world, kind of like a Jedi Knight or something, being prepared to take my place. And so from 1983 to 1990, I was really kind of lost. And then with the passing of the Americans with Disabilities Act, everything I knew to be true was in fact the law.
Did that make you feel more valued in society?
Well, it was empowering that I could go in the front door. It was empowering that I could have an accommodation. It was a recognition that it might take me longer to do the project, but I'll complete the project and do it as well or better.
All right, so you had the unfortunate occurrence of having a second accident in 1998, an automobile accident, that really you're lucky to walk away from or
well,
live through.
You're quite right, Mike. In '98, I was 2 chapters short of becoming Dr. J.R. in my dissertation. I was Regent Harding in the university system. I was on top of my game, just like I was in my senior year in high school. Flipped the van 4 times, broke 2 legs, my shoulder, and my spinal cord for the 2nd time. So everything I had gained was gone. I had to start completely over.
What is the message of your book, though, that it is anybody can succeed?
Well, I think that's part of it, absolutely. Anybody can succeed. You need to set baby steps to build success to get to the big steps. You also have to remember, at any point in time, now what may happen. Think of what's going on in America right now. We have flooding, we have tornadoes, we have economic depression, and we even have our wars. So thousands of families are struggling with now what.
Now what? And that is entitled, the title of your book. And J.R. Harding, Dr. J.R. Harding, thank you so much for being here to share your book with us, and appreciate it. And I look forward to having some more conversations with you. Everyone else, stay with us. When we come back, we'll see you in a minute.